Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast. Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It's Tuesday, September 17th. This is episode 134, and you are delighted to see all three of us today, which is nice. How's it going, guys?
Great,
it's
Matthew.
going great, although I'm a little concerned about the schmutz.
There's white spots on it.
On my microphone
Are you spitting on
it's
the
not
microphone?
me.
This is schmutzig, yeah.
It's kind of gross.
Chuck McGinnick, Don Harris, Matt Roy on tap. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe. Go to our YouTube channels, News 4 Fox SA, if you're so inclined. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell a friend, tell an enemy. All right, this is okay.
He killed the germs, but he also killed my lungs. Thank you, Don.
Nobody have a lighter out. All right, we got.
Hey, by the way, for those of you at home, I know I look really small on this screen, but it's only because Matt is a mammoth of a human being. What is he? 6'9", 275?
Every time he says this, I get bigger.
He's pushing 3 bills.
Yeah.
Every time he says this, I get a
6'9",
little bit
295.
bigger. It's not even close.
6'7", 260.
And I know I look like I'm shriveled up in the corner here because that's exactly what I am in this thing we call a studio.
6'7", 260. That's what we're going with.
Double your guys' size and half the age.
Don't we know it?
All right, we got a lot going on today. For the record, actually more than half. But anyway, so for the record, 6'5", 260 is what I'm at right now.
No chance.
So trying to get down to about 230. Anyway, it is.
Are you really trying?
Yeah.
What'd you have for breakfast?
I haven't had breakfast yet. Actually, I have eggs and sausage sitting in the
Okay,
fridge.
well, sausage isn't going to help you get there.
It's turkey sausage.
Okay, very good.
I have chicken and rice for lunch.
Good.
And then Jordan and I made some steak bites and these weird potatoes for dinner. See how that goes. Anyway,
sorry.
Yeah. Hey. Anyway, we got a lot going on. So we got to talk about the debacle in Dallas this past weekend. They got completely destroyed by the Saints and looked awful doing it. Their second consecutive home loss, if you count the Packers debacle last season in the playoffs. But our trivia question is only going to be regular season.
Over under for debacle already shattered.
Yeah, well, it should be at least 4, right? Debacle in Dallas.
That's 3.
Well, you said it once.
Oh, that's 4.
Plus, the Roadrunners get run all over by Arch Manning and the Longhorns, literally. Yes, Arch Manning, not Quinn Ewers. He got hurt, if you didn't see the game. We're going to talk about the Runners and if they can still make a little bit of noise this year. And what should Sark do at the quarterback position? Is it Arch's position now, or are they waiting for Quinn Ewers? We'll talk about that as well. Plus, 4th high school hype squad of the year. We're going over our TNL top 10, plus talk about our TNL matchup for Clemens and Alamo Heights. But first, get some trivia in here. The Cowboys' 25-point loss to the Saints on Sunday was the second worst home loss in a regular season game that Dak started. What was the first? What is the biggest loss in the history of Dak's starting quarterback tenure? And I will give you a hint. There was a really bad loss when he got injured. I think it was like a 30-point loss at home when he was injured. So that is not the answer.
Why wouldn't it be?
Because he didn't start that game.
Oh, he didn't start.
In a game that Dak starts, what is the worst loss? Any thoughts right away?
The Packers game last year.
Regular season.
Regular season.
I got nothing.
No.
I'm not even going to venture a guess.
No guess? I will. Do you want to save the answer until after the Cowboys stuff, or
a Tom Brady game on opening night?
Nope. That was a 19-3 game.
I don't know.
The answer is November 19th, 2017 against Philly. 37-9 was the final score. It was 9-7 at halftime. Philly came out. Carson Wentz went a little bit crazy in that game. It was 37-9. If they outscored the Cowboys 30-0 in the second half. And Dak threw 3 picks, no touchdowns. Not a good game for a second-year Dak Prescott in that one. So this is the biggest loss at home in the regular season in the Dak Prescott era in the last 7 years. So,
well, Sunday wasn't his fault.
It wasn't. I'm just, still not good. Sunday, they got completely bludgeoned, 44-19 to the Saints. They were favored by 6.5 points. That was kind of a trend this week, is that the Cowboys were 6.5-point favorites. Everybody else, the Ravens lost as huge favorites. The Eagles lost last night as huge favorites. A lot of huge favorites lost, but they didn't look good at all. They could not stop the run to save their lives. Alvin Kamara looked 10 years younger. What's the panic meter going on in Dallas right now?
I don't know if there's panic. This reminded me a lot of last year's game at Arizona. Remember, like week 2 or week 3? And they were fine after that. I think they'll work some of this stuff out. They got a new coach on the defensive side, new scheme. They do have one consistent big problem, and that is the run. The Packers just ran through them, and the Saints ran around them. They got to the edge, and why wasn't Overshown playing more? I saw he played 18 snaps, and this guy's got great sideline to sideline.
31% of the snaps.
I think that'll change. But yeah, they've definitely got some run scheme defensive issues. I'm about to choke, so I'll let you
I
go.
think they that's an odd way to pass the baton.
You go.
Baton was all taken. Okay.
You go so I don't die.
So I think they've got packages for both Overshown and for Leafau. And I think, if I'm having to guess here, they think, as we sit here today, that maybe Leafau is a better fit to stop the run, and Overshown's better when you've got a guy that you can use as a spy.
That went well
on a quarterback. Yeah, to your point, but I mean, it wasn't the only thing that was awful in that game for the Cowboys defense. And then, to Don's point about not blaming Dak, I mean, I think that's apt. I mean, when the other team can go and beat you with explosive plays, but also, slow kill you with these long extended drives, it's hard for an offense to get a rhythm, and they would have had to play perfectly in order to hang with New Orleans, no matter how you slice it on offense. So it was just I think it was one of those games. I think the Cowboys are still, from the defensive coordinator standpoint, trying to figure out exactly what he has. Obviously, nothing went well, and they'll know what not to do in this next game going forward. So to answer your question about the panic meter, I put this at about a 1 or 2. It's week 2 of the NFL.
See, I get the whole they have a new defensive coordinator thing, which is true, and they're obviously going to have to work through the new defensive scheme, but they haven't been able to stop this offensive scheme at all. 7 out of the last 9 times they've played a Shanahan offense, a West Coast offense, they've gotten killed. Only 4 of those have even been close games. They lost to Green Bay last year. That's a LaFleur out of the Shanahan tree. They lost to Mike McDaniel last year. That's out of the Shanahan tree. They also have to play Bobby Slowick and Zach Robinson, Zach Taylor, all those guys from McVay or Shanahan's tree this year. Ben Johnson runs a similar system in Detroit. You can't figure out a way to stop the West Coast offense. And Derek Carr was 8 for 9 for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns or something like that yesterday off of play action. If you can't stop the run, you're not going to be able to stop play action, and you're going to get torn up by a quarterback we all thought was washed until yesterday or Sunday, and a running back we all thought was washed until Saturday probably. Like, if you can't stop the Saints, what luck are you going to have stopping the 49ers or stopping Detroit or stopping any of the other better offenses who do this offense but better?
Well, they look pretty good in week 1 too. The Saints did.
Yeah, but they played the children of the blind in Carolina.
I mean, and they played a team that was coming off a pretty good defensive performance the week before.
Let's see. I think New Orleans is better than you're giving them credit for.
Okay, coming into the year, no one was high on New Orleans. They played the Panthers, who couldn't beat Alabama, probably, and and then they played the Cowboys.
Kubiak, man, you got to give that guy some credit. He was in his bag.
As a Broncos fan, I'm a big Kubiak fan.
He had him off balance, and I'll reserve judgment for 3 or 4 more weeks. I want to see what New Orleans does, because I think they're better than people think. And I think they're better than you're giving them credit for. That's not to say that the Cowboys weren't awful, and that San Francisco and Detroit and these other teams are going to play are better. And if you're right in that assumption that if they can't do it against New Orleans, what luck are they going to have against those 2 teams? I think that's valid. But I think New Orleans is better than you get.
Well, there's a reason that the 49ers have had their number. And part of it is the offensive scheme that they run against the defensive personnel. You have to have big guys up front. Mozzie's doesn't have enough lead in his ass. Odigizua does not have enough lead in his ass. Like, you have to be able to stop these guys up front and not get pushed around. And yesterday they proved they still cannot stop the run.
Has been a problem. I'll give you that.
Also,
but we'll see. I mean, again, yes, these are problems that seem to have plagued the Cowboys over time, but there is a new defensive coordinator. There's a bunch of new pieces, and let's just see what happens as we move forward here. If they're having these same problems in week 14 and 15, then they're probably not going to be in the playoff conversation.
I think what Chuck's saying is, let's not be Skip Bayless today and make it a big deal. Oh my God, the Cowboys are the worst team in the history of the world. They should blow it up. Jerry Jones should be burned at the stake.
How are they going to stop the Ravens this week if they can't stop the Saints? Derrick Henry's a big mountain of a man. He's going to be running right towards Bobby Smith's dome.
He's bigger than you.
Yeah, I know. Actually, he's not, but he's only 6'3", 250.
He's a large human being.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How are they going to stop that if they can't stop the Saints? Alvin Kamara's not.
Alvin Kamara is really good.
I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just saying he's not Alvin Kamara of 8 years ago.
He showed it. He looked at it against Dallas. He's still got that speed. And I was telling Chuck Sunday, I was like, man, he finishes runs tougher than you would think. He's always going forward, and he likes physical contact.
To your point earlier as well, I don't understand why Overshown against the Browns, and you can attest to this, Bob, was the best player on the field on both sides of the ball probably in Cleveland. He comes out and gets 31% of the snaps. I will never understand that. I don't care what package you have. You put your best players on the field in a position to make them make plays.
Yeah, I think they're going to figure that out in time. He's still trying to prove himself. He's a rookie with what? I mean, second year, but he didn't play. So he's a rookie with what? 1 game under his belt, 2? So he's still – it's like Wemby, right? It's like you know what you've got there, but not everybody's buying it yet.
What kind of world is this where you play really well and get benched and you don't play as much the next week?
Well, the plan in Cleveland was he was in those same packages, but they didn't expect for Cleveland to be in a certain offense that they were doing quite the way they were. So therefore, Overshown played more than they expected him to play, and even in game 1. So
I think they learned their lesson Sunday. I think he'll be out there.
Last question about the Cowboys, because we'll talk more about them on Thursday. Did they have a receiver worth a damn outside of CeeDee Lamb? Like Jalen, one of the picks, obviously, that Dak threw, obviously wasn't his fault. The receiver fell down. He juked himself out on a route. But CeeDee Lamb is their only viable target. Brandon Cooks was nowhere to be found on the field. Jalen Tolbert's looking a little bit better. He's better than Michael Gallup was last year. He made one great catch. But besides those guys, Kevontae Turpin is not a viable receiver. He's a gadget guy at this point.
I don't know. If you look at those cut-ups, man, there were a couple times that Turpin was wide open and Dak wasn't even looking for him. And there were some other plays, too, where Dak was looking a lot at 88. So, again, it's hard to read anything off of one game, especially with the way that the Saints played on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. And until, somebody comes out and has a big game, there is a lot to prove, I think, for everybody not named 88 on this team. But, again, I think it was just a lot of things that didn't go well.
They might get Ferguson back
in that week 2 ball game.
Schoonmaker, to his credit, looked pretty good.
Yep, he was open a lot, too.
Does that tell you, him not looking at his other receivers, does that tell you that Dak has dirty eyes, or his vision is off, or does that tell you that he doesn't have trust for his other receivers?
Trust. Tom Brady said it, right? Tom Brady threw who had the big drop? 83, yeah.
Brooks.
Threw him under the bus. Are you going back to him? No, I'm not going back to him. Not today.
Not today.
I think there is some of that. I mean, 88's the guy with the skins on the wall. 88's the guy that you're paying. 88 is the guy that you've got the most chemistry with. He's proven time and time again that if you put your trust into him, he's going to more than likely make you look pretty good. So
there's a reason you're paying him $35 million a year.
I mean, again, it's a long season, and they'll figure this out week to week.
Hey, just got a few comments. I'll roll through a bunch of them for you here. Rose says, I wouldn't put it all on Dak. She says that the offensive line needs some sharpening up.
Rookies did not have a good day.
Robert says people talking about the Cowboys like they're actual contenders is insane. I don't know what I feel about that.
I'm with him on that one.
And then Hanover says Carr making MJ dance moves on us like an MVP. What the heck? And then a guy named Mr. Tom Guerrero.
Shout out Tom Guerrero.
He says the Saints use the Green Bay plan. Receivers are running in quicksand. And I have a question. What is it about the Shanahan offense that's so good? What is making it so successful in the NFL?
It's the run and the blocking schemes that they use, and then they work really well off the play action pass. Whenever you see a quarterback bootleg, that's West Coast offense. Like it all came from Mike Shanahan from when he was coaching the Broncos and stuff like that, and then everyone else learned it from when he had Kyle and Sean McVay and LaFleur in Washington in that staff with RG3 back in 2012.
Let's not forget Bill Walsh.
I mean, Bill as well.
I mean, Shanahan's going to get all the credit for it, but the Godfather, rest in peace.
It's certain ways that the blocking is oriented and the creativity that the options present to you.
Yeah, and the way that the Saints set the edge when they were running the football. I don't care what offense you're running, you're going to win a lot of ball games if you can do that.
They got manhandled up front. Like that's not a question.
They did.
We'll talk more about the game against the Ravens on Thursday. Let's get to the UTSA Texas debacle. Bludgeoning. I only said that for you. Texas defeated UTSA 56-7, and quite frankly, it wasn't that close. I want to talk about UTSA first before we get to the Arch Manning stuff, because we are a San Antonio podcast first and foremost. UTSA sitting 1-2 right now. They ran the ball a little bit better against Texas than I was expecting. They have not run the ball well at all this season. They have a pretty young offensive line. Mekhi Hart still working his way back as well. Not where Traylor wants to be. Let's hear from Coach Traylor a little bit today. This was asked about when he was asked about practice, if it was more passionate or if they were trying to learn more from today's practice.
Just both. I mean, it's just time on task. I mean, nobody wants to hear it because it's just hard work, man. It's just hard, which is where we've been very successful. We have an unbelievable culture. We're not result driven. We're process driven. We keep our head down. We control the controllables, and you just keep chipping away. And if you can stay healthy, your team will keep getting better each week, and you'll have a really good football season. Sometimes in this game, you can't, because it's a physical game, and the only way you get good at it is by going out there and being physical. So we need to get some fortune to continue to practice and play as hard as we're playing right now. Just both. I mean, it's just
quick retrigger. How does UTSA kind of dig out of the hole that they're in right now? Obviously, last year they were kind of in a similar situation. They were, I believe, 1-3 last year after the Army loss, after they lost to Tennessee. Right now they're sitting at 1-2. You got Houston Christian coming in, and then you have Rice, and then you have East Carolina, and then you have a bye. So what do they do now as going into a game where you're 35-point favorites? It's kind of a get right spot for them. Hopefully you go into your conference play starting 2-2, but how do they kind of dig themselves out of this hole?
Just reps, they're really young. Let me tell you this. I think this team is more talented than some of the teams that won things, but they're not as experienced, and that matters, especially early in the season. 2 years ago, they were 1-2 just like this. They lost at Texas, and they were 1-2. They had Texas Southern at home. They beat up on them. And that was the first of 10 straight. They won 10 in a row, ran the table, and won the conference championship. I don't think they're going to do that this year. I think they still could very easily lose on the road at East Carolina and still reset and be very much in the thick of the race for the American. And I think that's what should have been the reasonable goal all along, 8-4 or whatever that is, and contend for the league. I think that the expectations of playing for the college football championship were outrageous for a team that was going to have this many new players, especially at quarterback and receiver. And without JT Clark, without Mekhi Hart, they're going to be good. They're going to be fine. They're going to beat Houston Christian by 30. They're going to go on the road to East Carolina, and that'll be close. And they could win or lose that, and then they'll be back on track. I think they're getting better each week. I was at the Texas game in Austin this weekend, and I sat there in the press box and was very proud of them. I thought they played as well as you could possibly play against Texas. Their superior opponent, who has, by the way, incredible team speed. Texas is really, really big and fast. And Owen was much more composed than he was against Texas State. And they ran the ball much better. They got stoned a couple times on 3rd and 4th down, but I thought defensively they ran to the ball. Getting Danye back was really big. He was really good in pursuit. So I think they're going to be fine. I don't know what people are expecting from UTSA. They're not Texas. They're not Georgia.
They were expecting a team that got first place votes in the media poll.
And they still might be that. But Texas, again, I'm going back to what I said about New Orleans. I think you got to give Texas State credit and Texas credit. Texas, obviously, best team in the country right now. Texas State almost beat your Arizona State squad.
But they didn't.
They're going to be good. And I think UTSA is going to be fine because they have so much talent and they have so much depth. But they're just young, and they're going to grow up, and they're going to win most of their games this year.
I like what Brennan Brady's dad said on Twitter. He's like, don't discount all the good that happened at UTSA was in part because you had guys that grew up together, played together as kids, competed against each other in some regards in high school or played together in high school. And what that did, building cohesion and trust and everything else, not only internally, but outwardly too, for those that were coming into the program. And then to have your leaders, 2 San Antonio guys that had those local connections, but also then were gregarious enough and able to work the room, and because they're such good people, be able to win over a bunch of guys too. And how often did that rear its head in those close games where they would win and maybe they should have lost, but they had that extra je ne sais quoi, that maybe other teams don't have. So I don't know. I think it takes a while to probably team build in some regard, and I think they'll get there at some point. But again, it's what Don was talking about with, the reps. You need the reps. You need time on the field together, going to these battles together, going to these hard practices together. Ultimately, it's going to pay dividends, but there was a lot to replace, I think, in some of these intangible areas that maybe we didn't really quite give that enough of an inertia during the preseason.
I would just say my panic meter for them is a little bit higher. Like, just speaking of panic meters, is a little bit higher this year as it was previous 2 years because of that. Though, with no Frank, with no Rashad, with no Cephas, like without those guys here, how does this team respond? And that's just a question that I don't know. I don't have the answer to yet. I know guys like Oscar and JT, they're going to get this team right. When do they get right is the question.
Yeah, that's right. And to Chuck's point, you think about it. The tipped ball that Oscar catches to win the division, which they go on to win.
Texas?
Against UAB.
Yeah.
That's one play. Oscar's one-handed catch over the middle against North Texas. That's 2 plays. JT's long catches in both the UAB game and the North Texas game in clutch moments. Zakari reaching out for the first down on 4th down it looked like he was a full yard short. That goes another way. They don't have any conference championships. On 3 different plays, it's kind of like Manu's foul on Dirk or point 4. It's like one play in each of those moments is the difference between UTSA winning conference championships or not. This team, as Chuck said, we don't know if they have all this talent, but we don't know if they have the guy that when the rubber meets the road, 10 seconds left, makes the one play. And you won't know that until you get into those moments, and some of these guys grow up.
I think that's well said. Speaking of guys who make the one play, JT, I'm just going to make a prediction here against Houston Christian. I think we see JT on the field against Houston Christian. 10 snaps.
I hope so. I'd take him anytime, any place. Just seeing him on the field would warm, I think, a lot of people's hearts.
I also think it would help the team, not just his playing ability, but his presence of being on the field in the pads again. What he's gone through is very well documented. He didn't even think he would play football again at one point, and now hopefully I'm right, and he makes his debut this week. A pro prospect,
and then so again, it goes back to who's going to be the playmakers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think what Frank was a playmaker, right? And you had Cephas in the league, JT, who everybody was saying was at worst going to be a middle round draft pick.
Zakari too
before he got hurt. Zakari making a one-handed catch for Illinois last week. You know, you can go right down the list.
Trey Moore off the edge over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Sincere McCormick in the league.
Yeah,
I mean, it's nice to have that kind of talent around you and guys that, work their way and have pro football potential on the field, like what Texas has seemingly at every position.
It's kind of like Frank was Tim Duncan, we took him for granted. Frank Harris made a lot of things happen.
Is that Owen McCown, LaMarcus Aldridge? No. All right, let's talk about Texas here for a second. So I just briefly want to talk about Texas just because the storyline coming out of that game was Arch Manning. Obviously, Quinn, you never want to see someone get hurt, first and foremost. He has a strained abdomen. Don't know how long he's going to be out for. Their next 3 games are against UL Monroe. Don't need him for that one. Mississippi State. They got beat by ASU, and they got the doors blown off by Toledo this past week, so probably don't need him for that one. Then you got a bye, then you got the Red River. So, to me, I don't ever want to see someone lose their job because of injury. I just don't know if you can prevent that from happening in this situation. If Arch comes in, and he played great against UTSA, 67-yard run, 4 touchdown passes, you name it. He played great, and I'd like to get your perspective on it since you were there, Don. But just to me, you start Arch for the next 3 weeks, and then Red River, you put Quinn back in if he's ready.
100%. I agree with that 100%. What we saw from Quinn at Michigan, Quinn's QB1.
Right.
And if he's ready to go, he comes back in for Oklahoma. You will not need him for the next 3 weeks. Let him heal. Bring him back for OU Georgia. I'm with you 100 on that.
What was that like in the stadium when Arch came in?
They love
played
Arch.
The way he played.
They love Arch in Texas, especially he throws a touchdown pass on his first throw, and then he does this. Look, man, he's got his grandfather's.
He's got his mom's
moves.
speed, according to him.
He's got Archie's. You go back and look at tape of Archie Manning at Ole Miss, and I think it was 68. He should have won the Heisman Trophy. He was amazing at running the football. He was a scrambler. Arch had speed to finish and the double juke foot in the ground move.
It's not Peyton speed, that's for sure.
No.
Chuck,
No, that was shocking. I didn't know that he was quite that athlete.
Chuck, what are the I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. How big of a set of cojones is Sark going to have and like turning the eye towards the social media sphere to, if Arch plays extremely well, which we would expect him to play over the next 2 weeks, how much is that going to kind of weigh on him to take Arch out at that point and put Ewers back in?
Not at all. I think if you're Sark, you're just licking your chops going, God, I can't believe I got Quinn Ewers and I got Arch Manning next year and the year after if he doesn't go pro, or however this all works with how these guys make their decisions these days. I mean, what a gift that you have, and they're being well compensated, I might add too.
Yeah.
But to have both of those guys, but yeah, there's I 100% rubber stamp everything that Don Harris just said.
Yeah, you have 2 of the toughest games back to back. You have the Red River game, which is the biggest rivalry probably in all of the land, and then you have Georgia right after. And I wouldn't even want to play in that game. I don't want those teams back to back. Hell no. It's just so interesting to me that you have probably a consensus top 10 NFL draft quarterback in Quinn Ewers, and we're actually talking about him being replaced by his backup.
Oh, no, I'm not.
No, I mean, like,
I don't think you are.
A lot of people are.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us think that.
That's the name. It's the name thing.
Yeah, obviously.
But Quinn's better right now.
100%.
I think Arch could be better in the long run, but both of them are going to be starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Absolutely. Let's get to high school football here, unless Bob, you're good.
I'm good. I just
All
know the bar that I was in when Arch came in, it came alive.
Yeah, they love him.
They do
love him.
All right.
Everybody loves the backup quarterback.
High school hop squad for week 4. Another great week of high school football in the books. We're going to go over our TNL top 10 and our TNL matchup for the week. Biggest surprise for me last week came as Reagan lost to Temple. Reagan obviously was reeling a little bit from that loss to Steele, but Steele's going to beat a lot of teams. Steele will make a lot of teams look silly. And Steele ran all over Reagan, and then Reagan lost to Temple. Temple was a team that was 1-9 last year, but historically is a pretty good squad. Came into Comalander and beat down Reagan. So I was very impressed by that. Do you guys have any other takeaways before we get to the TNL top 10 from high school week 3?
I just am looking forward to Steele and Westlake.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
I think this is the week we find out if Steele is a true state championship contender. Because San Antonio, it's been a while that we've had teams that were able at 6A level, able to get past Westlake / Lake Travis in that, whatever it is, the quarterfinal, semifinal rounds.
Yeah, last year it was Steele got to I want to say the regional finals.
Yeah, it's always that. And for the last decade or so, it's been the Austin teams. I think Steele has a chance to be that team. They've got so much talent and experience.
Mm-hmm. Chuck, anything to add before we go into it?
Let's get to it.
All right, let's talk about Steele. Steele's 3-0, defeated Brandeis 56-10, and wasn't very close. I mean, Steele's going to embarrass a lot of teams. Their offense is just ridiculous.
And shocking, though, because we saw Brandeis's defense with our own two eyes.
Right.
They're big and strong and fast. And so to be able to kind of navigate their way through that game like they did, that's a little bit of a shock.
They scored on almost every level, too. I believe they had a kickoff return. I think they had a defensive touchdown, and they had Royal Capel and Jalen Cooper just running everywhere. So it's just ridiculous. That game against Westlake is on Friday at Lenhoff. That will be our game of the week. We'll have it on Friday Night Fever. We'll have it on Fox SA. It should be a really good matchup, and I can't wait to see if Steele has.
Westlake's coming off a loss.
They are. I can't wait. I just want to know if Steele has it this year. Are they good enough to compete with the Austin schools or not?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know. Piper is our second team in the TNL top 10. Another impressive win by them. They beat Davenport 42-7.
How about the program that guy's building in such a short period?
Nick Rogers is phenomenal.
Crazy.
I mean, to their credit, Davenport lost their starting quarterback on like the first drive or second drive of the game, so that didn't help them. They're a 4A team. Piper's obviously a 5A team, but still, to beat that team, and Davenport's a very good 4A team. Don't make no bones about it. 42-7 is just they're ridiculous.
They have
Piper.
our offensive player of the year last year in Jake South.
They probably will this year too.
And they replaced him with a kid who transfers in and is probably going to be the best player maybe better than Jake South.
Yeah, maybe better than Jake South. Him and Chad Warner is probably the two best quarterbacks. Caden Keith.
Yeah.
Keeth.
Yeah.
Him and Chad Warner are probably the two best quarterbacks in our area, and it's probably not even that close. They play Wagner this week, 7 p.m. Thursday at Rutledge. Alamo Heights, who we will talk a little bit more about here in a second. They are on TNL this week. They defeated Canyon 55-27. Michael Terry passed for a touchdown, rushed for 2 touchdowns, caught a touchdown, and the Mules win. They also have the running back DK Garza, who's phenomenal. He ran all over Canyon as well. So they play on TNL this week versus Clemens. 7 p.m. over at Orem Stadium. I don't think I've been a part of a broadcast there yet.
None of us have.
Oh, we haven't done one there yet?
Never.
Interesting. That'll be fun. Their press box is really nice. So, not that I'll get to see it. I'll be on the sidelines. Southwest is number 4. They defeated Laredo Nixon 34-14. They head back to Laredo this week, playing Laredo Martin at 7:30 in their district opener. Brennan defeated Sotomayor on TNL last week. What were you guys impressed by Brennan? I personally, Mekhi Thompson and the speed that team has really kind of took me aback.
Yeah, and the defense gave up a total of 9 yards of offense. It was negative at the half. Grand total, Sotomayor had 9 total yards of offense. The defense was pretty impressive too.
Yeah, top to bottom. I mean, the kick return kid that plays defense. That guy's next level.
Tristan Escobar.
Yeah, they were very impressive against Soto.
Or Gavin Escobar.
Not Gavin. That's right.
Not Gavin.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
Yes.
They play Harlan this week on Thursday, 7 p.m. at Ferris. Was that a game that you guys were considering for TNL? Because I know we had them last year on TNL, a Harlan Brennan game.
We wanted Piper Wagner. Well, this week we had Westlake Steele.
Oh, did we really?
Steele moved it to Thursday for TNL, and then Westlake backed out.
Damn it.
Sons of
Freaks.
blazing.
I'm gonna need to get a beep over here. Anyway, so yeah, Brennan and Harlan were actually on TNL last year. That's when Harlan upset Brennan in the second half. One of the first times Harlan has beat Brennan, so they're gonna try and have a twofer this year and try and do it again. Smithson Valley was just all over the Madison Mavericks. Sorry for your alma mater there, Chuck. 65-0. Smithson Valley beat Madison. The Rangers open up district play this week against Bernie Champion.
Madison didn't score, and you're beating up on Chuck's Madison Mavericks. But we have got to get some highlights of Jordan Clay. They've got a receiver over there that is everybody wants him.
4-star.
Alabama wants him. Georgia wants him. Texas wants him. He's a stud.
They need to get him the ball.
Yeah.
Smithson Valley opening up against Bernie Champion this week. Bernie Champion's also 3-0. We'll get to them in a second here in the TNL Top 10. And then they play Piper the following week, and that's going to be a hell of a matchup. I can't wait for that Piper-Smithson Valley matchup next week. That's 7 p.m. at Ranger Stadium. Harlan coming off the bye week. They're playing Brennan. Just went over that. They're playing on Thursday. Bernie Champion playing Smithson Valley this week. They're coming off a win over Laredo Alexander. John Jay, once again, 3-0.
Yeah,
moving down to that 5A rank too was probably really, really helpful for them. They beat South San this past week, 33-13. Moving down to 5A, especially after they lost the talent, going to help them.
Yeah, I mean, just really, I guess we shouldn't be shocked, but just the fact that they were able to maintain the winning culture, even with all the guys that they had graduate, is, I guess, shouldn't be surprising given the job that Gary Gutierrez seems to do year in and year out down there with very little fanfare.
Yeah, and they apparently, I haven't been to any of their games, but they apparently draw.
Yeah,
they've got a following of. I mean, people love John Jay football.
Speaking of John Jay football, Jacob Zeno had a really good game against Arkansas this past week, so good for him. And then lastly was Brandeis. They're still on the TNL Top 10. They're one of our top 10 teams because Steele's going to make a lot of people look silly.
So did Josh Reynolds, by the way, have a nice game for your Broncos.
He did, you're right. Not everyone else had a good game for the Broncos, but
true that.
Especially Bo Nix.
What kind of game did Scott Ankrum have?
Blast from the past, eh?
All right, TNL matchup of the week is Clemens at Alamo Heights. So we weren't able to talk to Coach Hill this week from over at Clemens, the new head coach over at Clemens. We were able to talk to Coach Ridman. Heights keeps rolling, though. They're 3-0 this year. They've had a really, really, really bad injury luck. They've lost their quarterback for some of the season. They've lost their center for some of the season, linebacker, corner. They're just riddled with injuries, and you'll hear it from Coach Ridman here in a second. But, Chuck, when you look at the Alamo Heights matchup, what are you excited to see besides anyone named Michael Terry?
You got a tight end that's 6'7" and was also paying a visit to the University of Texas along with Michael Terry this weekend. So they've got legit dudes. And yes, they are banged up, but Clemens is too. I mean, they lost their bell cow running back who had already gotten a commitment to Army. And, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but they don't have him right now. So Coach Hill and his staff, they're kind of reconfiguring how they wanted to go about the season because their best player is not available. So they've got long game in mind too. And I know Alamo Heights does as well. But I guess going into this game, it's surprising that Alamo Heights has had this much success considering they're down 5 or 6 guys right now and 5 or 6 starters to still be able to have the success. And it's not like they're playing an easy schedule either. I mean, they're lining up against some 6As and, not only holding their own, they're administering a lot of pain and punishment. And so for Clemens, they're looking for this non-district schedule as part of a way to how do we go forward? I think they got a good plan in place that's going to serve them well once they get to league play. But make no mistake about it, man. They got some dudes on the outside, and we're going to see a lot of talent on that football field on both sides.
Is the 6'7"
come Thursday?
Is the 6'7" tight end at Alamo Heights the kid that's hurt? Is he the tight end?
No, he's available.
Oh,
he's available. Yeah. Let's hear from Coach Ridman real quick.
Well, Coach, let's first start off. How's the season been going from your perspective? I mean, it doesn't. You're 3-0, and none of these games have been close. Yet you're missing a lot of key pieces, especially on the offensive side. It was like, what's going on out here at Alamo Heights?
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes for our guys. Our players show up every week. We put the next guy in. That's the mentality that we always talk about. We've actually got to practice that this year. We've gotten better through the first 3 games. We had 2 great scrimmages, first of all, against a couple of 6A teams that really helped us get started, kind of set the bar where we were and found out what we could and couldn't do very well. And then for the first 3 games, we've improved each week. And that's what, as the coach, that's all you can ask for through the non-district schedule is try to find a way to get a little bit better in all 3 phases of the game. And that's what they've committed to doing, and they've done a great job. So we've actually played our best game so far this year, Friday night, against a really good Canyon football team. And now here we go again. And we got to be better in all 3 phases again this Thursday night to have a chance not only to be successful in that game, but to get us where we're trying to go as we start district next week.
Okay, is this going to be one of the tougher moments for you from a head coaching standpoint, when these guys are ready to come back, your guys that you had as penciled in kind of as their starters, when they get ready to come back, how do you make the decision with your backups playing so well? How do you make that decision when that time comes?
Well, I think that it'll all play out. As soon as these guys come back and start running around at practice and executing it, hopefully at a high level or a higher level, that it becomes just obvious to everybody that these are the best 11 guys to put on the field. They have great chemistry. They play as one. All the things you talk about and look for. That's what's exciting about this team right now is that we're having a certain level of success, but we feel like we have the potential to be a lot better.
And what's keeping Coach up right now when you watch film of a Clemens team, which their record doesn't look real good, but they're still a very solid team?
Because we've been playing Clemens since I've been in San Antonio, and we know what they have over there. They've got some really nice athletes over there. They're going to be well coached. They're going to play hard. I think their chemistry may not have been as good in a game or two earlier this year, but those are all fixable. And I hope they wait another week to get it all fixed. But no, they're gonna bring a lot of good athletes over here Thursday night. And like I said, I know Coach Hill's going to do a good job with them. It's going to be a great test for us as our last non-district game to see if we really are better in all three phases, because we're going to need to be going into district.
Last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, guys. Give me a minute each on Michael Terry and just the phenomenal athlete that he is.
Well, we saw him as a freshman at Alamo Heights, and Chuck and I said that day on TNL, okay, that's all we need to see. He's 14. He's gotten bigger and better since then. He's a 5-star, I think. Is he a 5-star or is he a 4-star? Anyway, everybody in the country wants him. And I think he's going to Texas. He's visited there 5 times, Nebraska 3 times, Oregon twice. Oregon and Texas, I thought, were the front runners, but everybody seems to think it's just a matter of time, and it could be sooner than later that he commits to UT.
We can just hope that he does it on Thursday.
That'd be great.
I don't think that's going to happen, but I will say this about the Texas connection. Apparently, there were 2 schools that offered Michael Terry III college scholarships before he even set foot on a high school gridiron.
Yeah, so 8th grader.
As an 8th grader. One of them was Jeff Traylor from UTSA, but he was not the first. He was the second. The first man to offer him was Tashard Choice and Georgia Tech. Tashard Choice, for those of you who don't remember, former Cowboy running back, great guy, great personality.
Boomer.
Guess where Tashard Choice's running backs coach now?
Texas.
So
just a little nugget. Just a little nugget from Chuck.
So I don't know. I mean, obviously anybody would be grateful to have not only Michael Terry, the player, but Michael Terry, the student athlete, Michael Terry, the son. I mean, what Ron Ritterman says about Michael Terry and his family, it just warms your heart that there are decent people in the world going through something like this, managing it, and not being disruptive while they're doing it. I mean, it says a lot about, Michael Terry's gifts more than just athleticism, but obviously he's getting some good coaching at home.
Good family, yeah.
I can't add anything to that. That's all we got for you guys today on the Sneakers Cleats podcast on this Tuesday edition. We'll be back on Monday next week. We'll be back on Thursday to talk more about the Cowboys, more about UTSA, and probably some other stuff that happens this week. That's all we got for you today. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, use 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll see you back on here on Thursday.